What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. It's a beautiful day in the garden today. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're at. And in today's episode, we've got another complete growing guide for all of you. That's right, we have another complete growing guide in our ongoing series of complete growing guides. So if you enjoy this episode, you'll probably love all the rest that we've done. I'll try to remember to post a link in the description box down below to that playlist for you guys to check out. But in today's episode, we've got a complete growing guide on ginger. Ginger, for those that are wondering, is a very easy plant to grow. It just takes some time. So with ginger, fresh is best. You can get it from anywhere that sells ginger. You can get it from the grocery store, you can get it from the farmer's market, basically anywhere that sells fresh ginger. You want to look for something that is light in color and is not raisiny. Dried ginger will start to turn like a raisin. See this little finger here? Ginger has a hand and then has fingers. And so ginger, when you're looking at like the hand, should be fairly shiny and should not have too much of this raisiny texture. You're going to get a little bit of that, but just making sure that you get ones that have as little of that raisininess as possible, because the fresh stuff is going to sprout the best. Now, what you're looking for is a hand that has many different growth points. You'll see here, there is a growth point right there, kind of blocked by the shadow there. That little green tip is what's going to actually grow the ginger. This is a root. And so this root is going to grow more roots because when you plant this, each little stem that grows up will set down roots and it will actually spread. So this is essentially almost like a seed potato in a way. When you plant your seed potato, that potato is a direct clone. It's going to grow a plant, and then when the roots are set down, it's going to grow more potatoes that are genetically identical to what you just planted. And so you're just going to basically be using this as a seed. So with ginger, yeah, you can plant it right in the garden if you want to do so. We're going to talk about all the conditions it needs to grow well. But I find ginger grows best in containers. And the reason why is because ginger actually needs a little bit more time than most of your garden does. The trickiest thing with growing ginger is how long it takes to mature. Now you can harvest ginger at any age, any size. However, the more time you have it in the soil, the bigger the roots are going to be. So by planting your ginger early, it's going to give you a good jump start. That's why, if you haven't already, go to the grocery store and you want to plant your ginger as soon as possible, even if it means throwing it in a pot, in a windowsill or underneath your grow lights, getting it started. You can still start it outside directly, but it's just going to take a lot longer to get growing and get started. So if you're in a place that has a very short growing season, it's going to be a little bit tricky. But ginger will grow just about anywhere as long as you have enough time. Now, the next thing you want to consider is the location that you're planting your ginger. Here, as you can see, we are in bluebird skies. It's super bright, might even be a little bit overexposed just because of how bright this spot is. Ginger actually does not like full sun. It likes partial sun. It actually grows as a terrific understory crop. So if you're growing things like tomatoes and peppers that give some shade, or if you're growing if you're growing in a tropical environment where you have things like palm trees, coconut trees, they grow very well. In fact, when Cindy and I, Mrs. MIgardener and I, were on our trip in Mexico, we actually visited a farm that was commercially growing both coconuts and ginger. The ginger was growing as an understory. And so it makes a great crop to grow underneath other crops, and intercropping is a great way to grow more food in less space, so keep that in mind. It really only needs about 5 to 7 hours of sun, and any more than that, it can start to kind of burn the leaves a little bit. So just keep that in mind when you're growing your ginger. Partial sun is great. Now that also is a benefit to growing in containers, because in containers, you can kind of move it out of the harsh sun. If you have it in direct sun, you can kind of move it into some shade and then move it outside after the heat of the day has passed. So just some things to consider when growing ginger. Now, the type of soil you want when growing ginger is very loose, very fertile soil. Again, you're growing a root and you want the roots to expand. You don't want to have a whole lot of really compacted soil, so the best soil that I can recommend for you is going to be either pure compost with a little bit of perlite added, or a very well draining potting mix. You want something with good amounts of perlite, but also good amounts of fertility. Don't go with something that is like a sterile potting mix. You want to add a nice fertilizer, which we'll talk about, because ginger needs to grow very fast to produce the nice big roots that form. So Now that you've talked about soil and we've talked about location, I want to talk about watering, because watering is the next most important thing to growing ginger successfully. Ginger is actually a root, and the top growth, it looks like any other tropical plant. You might think, it can grow in some pretty arid environments. And it can grow in some fairly arid environments, but because the fact that it's an understory crop, it actually likes to get lots of water. It actually catches a lot of the water that like when you're growing them, when they grow them commercially underneath coconut trees, the coconut trees do love it very arid. And the palm ferns, or the palm fronds, the fronds will actually drain water away from the plant, and then the ginger catches them. So the ginger actually likes more rain than some of your other arid plants. So that means it does like more water. We'll typically water our ginger about twice a week if it's in containers, and at least once a week if it's in a raised bed. So that's how much you want to water them. Obviously, that's going to be dependent on the size of the container, the type of soil you have, the environment you have. So don't take that as kind of the law or the gospel. That's kind of how often I find that I have to water my ginger. Now, the next most important thing is fertilizing. Fertilizing is critical to getting good root development. But the big mistake I see a lot of gardeners making is fertilizing with lots of phosphorus. Ginger does not need lots of phosphorus. It actually needs lots of nitrogen. The reason why is because each ginger root is actually dependent on how many different stalks of growth it has. Those stalks of growth will put out new ginger roots. And so because this is an energy store, you actually need to have growth above to store energy down below. And so all the leaves are what generates the energy for the plant. And that is the secret to getting lots of ginger. So make sure that you use a really good nitrogen-rich all-purpose fertilizer. We use Trifecta Plus. I've got some laying around here. It's over there. I got some Trifecta Plus. That's what we use to fertilize our ginger. And so before we get this thing planted, that's what we're going to use. Super simple. And then the final thing is temperature. You want to make sure that you put this in a nice warm location. Ginger is a tropical plant. It does not do well in the 30s and 40s. It can tolerate it for a little bit. It definitely does not tolerate a freeze or a frost though. But if it dips down to the 40s, it's not going to kill it. It just won't like it. But its preferred temperature is really no lower than about 50 degrees, upwards of about 100 degrees. So the warmer the better. It loves that tropical, arid, beautiful kind of subtropic environment. So it's going to love it the more heat you can give it. Now, the final thing I want to do is show you how to plant it, because when planting ginger, it's very important to plant it correctly. So let's go. All right, now it's time to plant the ginger. Now, when it comes to planting ginger, a lot of gardeners make the mistake of planting it in a container. It does do well in containers, but the container is often too narrow. See, this container here is about a 3-gallon trade pot, and it's only about maybe 11 inches in diameter, maybe 12 inches in diameter at most. And the downside to this is that ginger does not grow deep. It grows flat. Ginger does not grow down like potatoes do. It actually grows out. And if it grows out, and you have a long enough growing season, it's going to slam into the sides of this container, and it's really going to stunt its growth. Sure, this is going to be fine for the time being, absolutely fine. You can always transplant it later if you want to do so, but I prefer just planting it in a wider container to start. This wine barrel is where I'm going to plant mine. You don't have to go quite this wide. There's no way the ginger is going to grow up and fill all this out, especially here in Michigan in one growing season, but it gives me just a nice wide starting point. And so I'm going to use the wine barrel, but you can see big difference. Huge difference in just the overall diameter. So something in between, Goldilocks. Don't go so big. You don't have to go so big, but don't go super narrow either. Especially, if you're planting it in a raised bed, you don't have to worry about it at all. But containers is where this mistake is often made. So the final thing I want to do is get this planted. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our fertilizer. First, I'm going to prep the hole here. I'm just going to, again, prep the hole. I'm going to make it wider than it is deep, because remember, ginger likes to grow out, not down. So I've only dug this little divot about 1.5 inches deep. Very shallow actually, but it's nice and wide. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fertilize. I'm going to apply, I use Trifecta Plus, so based on what fertilizer of choice you're using, follow the directions, but I'm going to apply the fertilizer for a heavy feeding plant. So I'm going to apply about 3 tablespoons to the surface there, mix that in, and I'm going to plant my ginger flat. You don't want to plant it down. You don't want to plant it up. You want to plant it flat. Flat is the best. You plant it like that, cover it up. You want to make sure that there's about an inch of soil covering up the plant, and that's all you need to do to grow ginger. Now all we have to do is water it in, obviously. Keep it well watered. You're going to start to see sprouts in about 3 to 4 weeks. It does take a while to sprout, so don't panic and start digging it up and worrying about it. You'll see sprouts, it just takes some time. And so get it in the ground, get it well watered, and get it fertilized in some nice well-draining potting mix or compost with a little bit of perlite and things like that, and it's gonna do great. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. Ginger is such a rewarding crop to grow. It's so great for your health. It's great for your digestion. It's great for, anti-inflammatory. It's just fantastic all around. You can use it dried, you can use it fresh. It is amazing. And so a lot of people just fear that they can't grow it, or they get overwhelmed by trying to grow it. It's a very easy plant to grow. You just need some time. Now, the final thing I did forget is when it comes to harvesting. So when it comes to harvesting, you can pull up the entire plant if you wish to do so. But if you have a long enough growing season, what you can do is you can kind of dig around, find some of the roots, and just break off some of those fingers for what you need to use in your cooking or your tea or whatever. If you just break off what you need and leave the rest of the plant, it's going to continue to grow. Now, the final note is that when you actually break it off, it's going to have very, very soft skin. It's not going to have a very dry, leathery skin. And so the fresher the ginger, the better the flavor and the more nutrition it's going to have, but the more juice it's going to have as well. So it's going to be way better to get that fresh ginger. But if you're looking at planting it, all you have to do is literally just let it sit out on your counter for like 3 to 4 weeks, let it get that leathery skin again. Once it gets that leathery skin, it kind of cures, almost like a potato or anything like that. You can plant it and actually grow ginger from your own homegrown ginger. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. As always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to like this video if you did. Let me know what you learned in the comments box down below. Share it with a friend if you think they'd enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. All right, grow big or go home, everyone. Take care. Bye.